Let's do an introduction video to Fusion 360. Fusion 360 is an AutoCAD program that you can make sketches in and then take those sketches and create 3D parts out of them. Fusion 360 is going to be used in our F1 in Schools competition that we have at our school here. And for the purpose of this video, we're going to just start by showing you how to use some of these tools by building a wheel for our miniature F1 cars. Before you can work in this space, you are going to need a sketch. So when you create a sketch, it's going to show you these three different planes that you could do them on. It really doesn't matter for the purposes of this wheel which plane you're going to choose. I can scroll in and out using the wheel on my mouse. Be careful that you don't get lost in this gigantic world here, because our wheel is going to be a very, very small portion of the work area. And if you get cruising around the work area, you could actually possibly lose your wheel in there. Okay, so as I add sketches and do things, they're going to show up on my timeline down here. And I can go back in time and I can go forward in time to work on my model. Let's just let's do some of these things and let's just get after it. When you're going to create a sketch, here are the tools that you can use to create a sketch. So lines, rectangles, circles, slots, and lettering and mirroring and patterning. We can do all of that, but we're going to start with if we're going to do a wheel, let's just do what you would probably think is we're going to make a circle and make a wheel here. So the wheels for the F1 cars that we're going to be making, let's say we're going to make one about 28 millimeters in diameter. I think you saw when I was scrolling around here that when I'm making a circle, the measurements that they're using are millimeters. Okay, it says 4748.332 millimeters. I'm just going to escape. I don't want another circle. And when you hit the enter button, whatever number's in here that you type in there or drag in there is going to get displayed now. And that's called dimensioning the shape. So when it dimensions, it kind of leaves it right here, which I figure is a little bit in my way. It can get really messy in here. So I'm going to take my dimensions and put them in a safe place and make it look attractive. So I think that's a pretty good spot, letting me know that my circle is 28 millimeters. If you ever wanted to measure your circle, you could click measure up here and measure your circle, and it'll tell you nice things like the circumference all the way around is 87.965 millimeters, the radius being 14, and the diameter 28. So if you don't have something dimensioned like that, you can actually just measure what you've done. We're going to move on and keep building our wheel for our F1 car. So our F1 car is going to have a round wheel that's 28 millimeters, and I need to design pivot point or something in the center for my wheel to move. So what I think I'm going to do with this particular wheel is I'm going to put a hole here in the middle, and I'm going to allow a carbon fiber axle to be pushed into the center of this and maybe glued into place. Okay. And if I had a carbon fiber axle that I wanted to use of, let's say, 5 millimeters, I could put 5. Now, if you measured it and you were working in inches, you could type in something like 0.25 IN. And it will say, okay, well, I can put you in 0.25 of an inch or a quarter of an inch and do it in standard. But it is good practice to always stick with the same units of measure. So if you're going to use millimeters, just please use millimeters. And for our F1 in schools, because the metric system is used in the F1 rules, that's what we're going to use here. Okay, so I've made my 5 millimeter hole. Again, I dragged that dimension out of the way so that was easy to look at. Okay, and that's a sketch. I have a round wheel, so I think you can see where I'm going here. I'm going to just finish this sketch, and there we go. We have a wheel. When you have a sketch, then you have different things you can do with that. You can extrude and you can revolve and you can do all these things. As I click on extrude here, you can see it says press control and then / for more help. I'm going to do that right now, control and /, and you're going to see that it's going to end up giving me a little guidance bar on the center. Okay? And when I click on something like the extrude command, you can see it's going to give me step-by-step instructions on how to extrude this shape. Now, I'm not going to use that to teach you right now, but if you are ever stuck and you don't know about all the settings that you're using, you could just leave the learning panel open. It really doesn't get in your way a whole lot. So what extruding does is it takes this 2D shape and gives me some body to it. It's going to 3-dimension it. When I 3-dimension something that's flat on a piece of paper like this, it's a way better visual to get a look from the side. So you can see in this top corner that if I click on the top box, it takes me to this view. And if I use the corner of that box, it's going to give me a little bit of a side view. I like to use the side view whenever I'm extruding. So let's extrude this shape. So I'm going to grab this wheel, if you will, and I'm going to give it some depth. Now I can pull away on this to get the numbers that I want, but it is way more accurate to type them. So let's say we wanted to make our wheel 14 millimeters wide. Okay, we've got our 28 diameter. Let's go 14 millimeters wide. I could leave that hole through the center, or I can click on the hole and make it solid. All right, so I do have that option when I do this. Now I've talked about shoving a carbon fiber axle into this thing and gluing it. So we're going to do this. We're going to make it solid and say okay. And now you're going to see I have this perfectly round shape, 28 millimeters by 14. The way I moved around my space there was I can scroll in and out using the wheel on my mouse. I can move around by clicking the wheel on my mouse. And then if I want to spin the shape around in a fairly intuitive way, I'm going to hold Shift on my keyboard, press down on the roller on my mouse, and I can drag this around and I can manipulate it. If I ever get caught getting it back to the original view, I can just click on my top. I can rotate it back around because I know that this is where I started. And that's a way that I can make a shape like that. Another thing I can do now is, let's say I want that center hole back in this wheel, but I want it only partway through. Well, extruding doesn't always have to add material. It can also take it away. So for me to extrude, I need to see my sketch, and I don't see it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this bar, and you can see that there is a little visibility icon here showing me that my sketch is hidden. I'm going to click on it, and now I can see my sketch again. Now my sketch is on this side of the circle because I extruded in this direction. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on that, and instead of new body, let's say I'm going to cut. I can cut, and when I'm cutting holes in something, it's going to make it red. There's other commands on here like holes and things, but I've already got this circle here, so I'm going to use it. If I wanted to cut all the way through the wheel, I could click on this and it would snap to whatever I click on. That's one option. I can drag my hole, okay, and I can type in numbers. I can also use this drag to taper or change my hole. So if I wanted to taper it in one direction, like make the hole bigger, 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 then I could use this and create a taper with 5 degrees or 10 degrees. Now I don't want that, but I could make the hole smaller and smaller so my axle enters but then gets kind of stuck on the way in. I don't think I'm going to do that. My wheel was 14 millimeters wide, so let's make the hole halfway. That's what I'm designing this to do. So I'm going to click 7 millimeters. I'm going to press OK. And now I've got a hole through the center of this wheel to accept that carbon fiber axle. Okay? And that would be a very, very simple wheel. Now, we're going to have to make a lot more complex wheels than this very, very simple design, because our F1 cars do need to be strong, but they also need to be light. And as you're building your F1 car, you're also going to want it to be very attractive. So you could do things to remove material from this gigantic circle that you have. If I wanted to work back into the sketch and maybe put some more designs in this, I can go back to the sketch that I have, right click it, and edit sketch. I'm back in that two-dimensional world, okay, that I was in before. I'm just going to flip it back around to the top so I'm looking at it the same way that I had before, and I can make changes to this. The changes that I could make is I could put circles and place them in here and then extrude out those circles so I have maybe what looks like a vehicle's rim with big centers cut out, circles cut out of it for shapes, okay? I don't think I'm going to do that. So I'm going to go back here. Oops. And I'm going to get rid of that. I don't like that circle there. So I'm going to just select it and delete it. What I am going to do, though, is, yeah, let's do this. I'm going to put another circle here. And this time, I want to make a little narrow rim around the outside. So I have a 28 millimeter circle. I'm going to go, oh, what am I going to go? 24. Okay, I'm going to make a 24 millimeter circle inside of that. Drag this out. Again, nice and attractive so I can see it. And I'm going to finish that sketch. Some of you might see where I'm going with this, some of you might not, and that's cool. I'm going to flip this around, and I'm going to extrude out some of the material inside of this wheel. Now, it's going to take a little bit of practice for you to find out how strong plastic 3D printing is and how thick you're going to need your wheels and such. But this wheel is 14 millimeters through. So let's give it a nice number like 12 and cut that out of there. When I hit OK, it's going to take a little bit because it does have to process what I've done. And it's complex what I've done. Okay? I'm going to hide the sketches because I find it kind of hard to see what I've done because the sketch is in the way. And that's what I've done. Okay? I've cut out a large portion of the wheel. But with that in place, I've now lost my ability to shove my axle in from that direction. So I'll have to fix that. And I can fix that by editing my extrusions. I can do that by editing my sketch, so on and so forth. But I think you're starting to see how I can maybe manipulate this drawing here. Now that I've done a wheel here, and I've shown you how to make a sketch, you can make additional sketches. And you can make sketches on different planes. So if I wanted to make sketches on this plane, I would then pick this plane. Now I'm on this plane, I can now sketch on this plane and make changes that I see on this side of the wheel. And instead of doing circles all the time, I don't know, let's do an arc. I'm going to place a circle at both sides and then do that there. I'm going to create a line just to close this whole thing up, and then I'm going to finish the sketch. As you can see, the visibility is still off on my sketches from before, so I'm going to turn it on, and now I can see that sketch that I've done. I could take this extrude function that you'll end up using quite a bit. The extrude one's pretty common. And then you could drag away parts of that wheel. Now, when I chose the plane, even though it looked like I was drawing on the outside of the wheel, I was actually drawing in the center of the wheel because that's where the plane was. If you want to extrude more than just one side, you can extrude both sides. And if I accept that, my new product is a wheel with a different shape. I've extruded away from the other dimension, if you will. Okay? This wheel's not being very functional anymore. Okay? It seems to just not be working out very well, but that is getting you in and playing with the program. I'm going to show you the best way I think there is to make a wheel, and it's going to be a little bit daunting at first, but I think you're going to see the visual reason that I do it afterwards. So if I wanted to save this, I better hit save from time to time, save my garbage wheel, because that's what this thing is. I can't use that wheel, but I'm going to save it anyways to show you how to save it. Now you can see it's garbage wheel version 0. And every time I save it and change it, it'll go version 1, version 2, version 3. So if you don't like a certain version, you could go back and get a different version of it. So on and so forth. I'm going to make a new design. I'm going to create a sketch, and again, it won't matter what plane I do this on. And now to make a wheel, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to make a wheel with a rectangle. That's right. I'm going to make a wheel with a rectangle. Okay, so there's a rectangle that I made. Now this time I just clicked when I did my rectangle. I didn't enter in anything. So if I want to know the size of this rectangle, because depending on where I'm zoomed in, it could look like it's miles wide, or it can look very, very small. I don't really know what I've made here. So I'm going to go into Sketch Dimension, and I'm going to click on either side of this, and it's going to show me that I actually did make a 12 millimeter circle, or rectangle, sorry. So I'm going to change that to 14. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to dimension the other sides of it as well. Okay, and I'm going to dimension it 14. So I'm going to have this kind of gigantic square sitting here. All right, now I'm going to use another rectangle, and I'm going to just click, oh, I don't know. We're going to make this number 7, and we're going to make this one 2.5 millimeters. I bet you actually don't see where I'm going with this, and maybe you do. That's great. I'm going to finish the sketch. And now I have my wheel. Looks pretty sweet, doesn't it? And the way I'm going to make my wheel is I'm going to use a different command up here called revolve. Remember, you can look for more help anytime you open this up, but you can see that it's talking about revolving a solid body. So you can see that they started with this shape here, and they revolved it around 180 degrees to get that. Well, why don't we revolve this? I'm going to revolve it around an axis of the bottom piece here. Okay? And then there you'll see I've made my circle. It's just as perfect as it was before. All right? I guarantee it was. And I did it by drawing rectangles instead. I'm going to go back to the profile here where I was able to, you know what, I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to revolve again, but I'm going to just select this piece this time. And then I'm going to select this. And what you're going to notice is that it leaves that hole in the center. Because I revolved this shape around it, okay, it made this hole. If you were watching, you would notice that I made this rectangle 7 millimeters by 2.5. So when it revolves, it's actually leaving a 5 millimeter hole in the center, just like I was trying to do on my other wheel. Okay? And the reason I made the wheel this way is I think this way of making the wheel gives you more options. I'm going to click OK, and you can see that I have a wheel. But if I go back and I edit this sketch, then instead of making this a solid wheel, I could maybe remove a whole bunch of material from this. So let's say I made, we'll do a fit point spline. I'll show you this command. And I just came in here, and I don't know, came in all about that far, and drew something like that. And then I finished that sketch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that revolve because I don't want to see that. I don't think it's what I want. And I come back in here and now I revolve this piece around this axis. Oops. Hard to see what I've done here. But you can see that this is no longer solid on the inside anymore. It's hollowed out in a way that is completely uniform because this sketch that I made was 1 degree of the 360 degrees as it revolves around. And all 360 degrees are the same as that 1 degree that I made. So what it does is it makes a wheel with a contour like it was machined that way. It still has my hole in the center for my axle to go through, but it has some unique shapes to it now, almost like it would if it was an actual car rim. Pretty neat. So this revolve technique is probably the best way for you to build wheels that are uniform and very attractive. You can take a shape like this one in the toolbar on the right and turn it into a very uniform, balanced item that when it's 3D printed will turn and rotate perfectly true. Now, you might say that there's a lot of material here yet, and that my plastic wheel is still pretty heavy. And I think I'd agree with you there. So let's use another technique to make it look better, take some weight off, and learn some new things about this program. So let's create another sketch. And this time we're going to go back to, sometimes you can't always get to what you want to, so I'm going to select that plane right here. Okay. I'm creating a sketch on this plane. I still have my center point there that I can use to reference. I've got my outer points here, and we're going to draw, what are we going to draw? Circles, nah. We can make a polygon, that would be fine. Rectangles. You know what? We're going to use the arc. And yeah, sure, we'll make a 3-point centering arc. So remembering that I have a hub in the middle here, that I need an axle, but let's what am I doing here? Let's do that. And then I'm going to make a line. Okay, let's say we wanted to take that shape right there. And there's ways to locate that shape like that. And let's say we don't really like the location of it, the distance between here and here, so we change that to 4. It would move the shape. But I actually think it needs to go more that way. So instead of 4, let's use 2.5. Okay, that's looking a little bit better. And this shape is something I'm going to cut out to remove material. Something that we can do with this is we can create a circular pattern which would go around the rim. So it's going to ask for the objects that you're going to use in their circular pattern. So I'm going to use the entire thing there. I'm going to select the center point of my circle is there. And you can see that it's going to put 3 of them in and around the wheel. I can select 4. I can try to select 5. Yeah, let's do 5. 5's looking pretty attractive. It's going to full distribute them. You could just partially distribute them. But whatever you do, you want it to be symmetrical because, of course, balance weighting in a wheel is going to be very important. Sometimes when you're doing things like this, the program gets a little, starts to struggle because it is an online program. You're using a lot of wavelength when you're making these shapes. So just be patient with the program. These shapes are going to show up on that middle plane again. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish the sketch and I'm going to extrude out these shapes here. If I can't really get a hold of them, sometimes I'm going to have to modify how I'm looking at my drawing so I can grab them easily. Right now, it likes that. I can cut out of part of it, okay? But I think what I want to do is cut out of both sides. So I'm going to click both sides. I'm going to cut out of my wheel, and you're going to see the result. The result is this side, I had some nice curvatures from my first sketch. And then this way I have some uniformly cut wheel spokes, if you will, okay, that are perfect in every way, the way that they're shaped there. This is a balanced assembly. I don't think that this is necessarily a design I think you guys should run with or whatever, but maybe. And you can still see that my carbon fiber axle would still fit in the middle of that. And I could have glue in the end or on the sides and it would fit, or it might even just push on really tight. Okay, this is actually a usable design that I could export and use. If I wanted to do some editing in here, I think I've done quite a bit here. I should save, and let's just say F1 wheel. This is one that we're going to use, and I'll click save. Okay, I've got my wheel, and I'm pretty happy with it. But there's some things that I'm not entirely thrilled with. I can go back here and I can edit my sketch. I can maybe change the number of how deep that axle was going to go into the wheel. And let's say I've decided that sticks far through, way far, farther than what I need. So I'm going to change that number to 5. And then because I have this extra space here, I'm going to figure that I could probably drag this shape further in. Okay, change the shape of that. I can finish my sketch. And when I come back out, the depth of things will have changed and the shape of the wheel will have changed because I went in and I edited the sketch. That's why it's really important that when you're doing these sketches that you do dimension things. So if you do make any changes to it, that it's very easy to do. Okay, I can make that hole a little smaller. And now you see it doesn't cut in to those wings. I don't know. I actually think I liked it better the other way. So if I got a different size axle, or I decided to put a bearing in there that was maybe 3 millimeters, or sorry, 6 millimeters, because this is a radius, I can go in and make those changes anytime I want. Okay, I'm pretty happy with my wheel. I think it's unique in ways. I could show you how to put text and a million other things. But as far as making a wheel, I think you can take this way and play away and really make something that you're proud of. When you're done and you have it saved, the next logical step would be to 3D print this. And I'm just going to shut the sketch off so you can see it entirely. Is 3D print this and, actually have it in my hand, maybe weigh it to see what it's going to weigh and whatever. So when you're going to export it for 3D printing, you need to change the type of the file. 3D printers need STL files, and STL file is down here. You would click export. Oh, usually it shows, there it is. It shows this action being completed, and it's going to end up in your file explorer in the location that you had selected back there. I didn't actually look. I think it usually sends it to my desktop. And then after it's an STL, that's the file that you're going to use in a 3D printer slicing software to 3D print your part. Anyways, I think this was a good start and a fairly long video, but a fairly informative video. If you're doing this at home or just needing a refresher on how to use the program, this will get you making some sketches, dimensioning some parts, making some changes, and making a pretty decent final product. I don't think this wheel would be an embarrassment on my car. I think I could be proud of this, but of course, I'd like you to spend a little bit more time to make yours even better. Okay, I think that does it for part 1 here. Stay tuned for more parts as we work on these F1 designs and make better cars.